India's ancient artistic traditions were unparalleled, be it the Himalayas in the north or the Ghats in the south, the desert to the west and the jungles in the east. Each region and every century had a distinct style. But very little was being done to either preserve or celebrate these ancient traditions even after we regained our independence. Blatant disregard towards cultural theft and no initiatives to bring stolen items back was still the trend. Until recently, when this outward flow was finally reversed. Why did it take us almost 7 decades? What was this almost sudden change? Hello and welcome to New India Junction. I am Richa Dwivedi and this is The Bottom Line. Any artifact is proof of a civilization's existence. Even when these idols are thousands of years old, they represent the very soul of our culture. Within their intricate designs exists the immense knowledge of our civilizational ethos. For any patriotic Indian, what do you think would be the first words that come to mind about such idols? Priceless, civilizational, inseparable. But to a colonizer or someone with the same mindset, they would simply look like the spoils of war, bounty that belongs to the conqueror. After all, neither did these idols represent their culture nor did they hold any civilizational value to them. Now take for example the idol of Ma Annapurna. It was stolen from a temple in Varanasi in 1913. Some reports suggest that a stranger did so to impress a lawyer named Norman Mackenzie. Do you think that Norman Mackenzie knew what the idol represented? Do you believe he was aware that an entire culture bowed down before her, sought her blessings? Imagine the disbelief and grief that the people of Kashi felt the day they discovered she was gone. Understandably, a foreigner might have made the mistake, but why weren't any efforts made to repatriate the same? Now imagine the relief and joy when the idol made its way back from Canada. Was it given the same treatment or was it accorded its rightful place and the honor it was robbed of? When we became independent in 1947, we declared to the world that we were free and liberated from oppression. A moment such as that is nothing short of a proclamation that it is impossible to subdue our culture, our civilization, and our beliefs. By that logic, our culture should have been prioritized and proudly promoted as our millennia-old way of life. Did that happen, or did we simply attain independence in kind but not that of the mind? There are no fairy tales without a tragedy. In this case, it was the fact that indifference towards our own culture became a fashion statement. To actively oppose our culture was actually more acceptable. Why did this happen? Was it not because of the same colonial mindset that even today refuses to die down? Let's look at some numbers. Between 1976 and 2014, just 13 idols were retrieved. But how is this even possible? The simplest explanation is that India's ruling elite never really let go of the colonial mindset. In all probability, they considered themselves not to be Indians, but rulers destined to govern over the sacred land. Even as a mere handful of idols were returned, hundreds, possibly thousands were stolen. Again, mostly because unlike you and me, these power-hungry elites did not believe in our culture. They made no efforts to stop this blatant abuse of a culture that lives. Do you think they were concerned that with every idol that was stolen, centuries worth of civilizational credit went away? Do you believe they really cared? Thankfully, this is all a frightening reminder of the past. Here are some numbers that prove our point. After Prime Minister Narendra Modi took charge in 2014, 316 idols were retrieved. This means that on an average, where one idol was being retrieved every 3 years before 2014 with Prime Minister Modi at the helm, around 45 idols and other pieces of our heritage are making their way back every single year. Moreover, this is something that is now a major soft diplomatic engagement for India on her own terms. These are some of the nations which have voluntarily agreed to hand over items stolen from India. Singapore, the USA, the UK, Australia, Canada, Belgium, Italy, Germany, and they are just some of the names on a list that keeps on growing. Countries are lining up to return these invaluable pieces of heritage. In fact, this seems to have become a highlight of the Prime Minister's diplomatic engagements. Over 150 such idols and other antiquities made their way back with Prime Minister Modi from the USA last year. Ahead of the bilateral summit with Australia, 29 artifacts were returned. Have you ever wondered why it's happening now? What brought about the change? Simply put, the entire world is now aware that if there ever was an Indian government that cared about our culture, that echoed the wishes and desires of the Indian people, it is the one headed by Prime Minister Modi. Foreign nations are respecting India's culture. They are making efforts to understand its nuances because they respect the will of 1.4 billion people. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw how world leaders often greeted each other with a namaste. Do you remember any other time something so quintessentially Indian became a global trend? The same could be said for yoga. Is this not the best example of soft diplomatic power? Today, the entire world is aware that India's leadership is in tune with her culture and even grassroots level traditions. The world is awake to an India that is proud of her traditions, that respects her culture. A nation that made its collective aspirations evident not once but twice. Is this not exactly what you, me, and more than a billion others always desired? Does this not make our culture an inalienable part of our identity and in turn our biggest strength? Does this not signal the beginning of a new era? Is this not proof of new India that is proud of her past and ready for the future? You decide.